Welcome into NFL Daily. I am Tom Downey. That is Harrison Graham. One of the biggest injuries of the year, Saquon Barkley. He is out. Harrison, this is a big loss for both fantasy and, of course, the New York Giants.
Yeah, I, of course, was watching this game because I do our Bears coverage, and it did not look good, and it was kind of one of those, well, that looks like a torn ACL, but I don't want to speculate. Well, it's a torn ACL after the MRI confirmed that on Monday, and that is obviously a major blow to the Giants, not even just for this year. This is probably not a team ready to contend in 2020, but it slows down the development of a guy like Daniel Jones. You've got a new coaching staff with Joe Judge and Jason Garrett. To lose your best player 2 weeks in, that's a real bummer for the New York Giants.
And this is a coaching staff that really wanted to use Saquon Barkley in a very heavy way, and now their depth chart, Harrison, ew.
Wayne Gallman, who wasn't even active, I think he's probably your traditional RB1 as of now, with Dion Lewis kind of being that hybrid ball carrier and pass catcher. Had 4 grabs for 36 yards in the loss against the Bears. You got Rod Smith on the practice squad. I don't feel great about that running back room.
The Jason Garrett train lives.
Yeah, the Jason Garrett connection never dies. But Saquon Barkley is done for the year, so we put together a list of candidates that the Giants could look at to potentially replace him.
So let us know in the comments who you believe the Giants should replace Saquon Barkley with. Who should they sign? Trade if you want to go that route as well. This will be the pinned comment on today's video, so scroll on down and cast your votes. And you know what? While you're down there, why don't you hit the red subscribe button? That way you can get all of our NFL videos multiple times a day, all for free. There is no charge whatsoever. All you have to do is subscribe, and you'll be updated on the NFL every single day. Let's go in now to some of those potential Saquon Barkley replacements. Giants focus first, then we'll talk fantasy. Harrison, we kick off with Devonta Freeman.
Yeah, look, this is the biggest name out there, right? In terms of name recognition, he's reportedly supposed to meet with the Eagles
Giants
soon,
too.
And the Giants as well. A couple of NFC East teams. I would think he'd be more interested in the Giants at this point, and clearly his best days are behind him. But this is a guy that still wants to play. He hired Drew Rosenhaus this offseason to try and help generate a market for himself, but to be quite honest, Tom, he was not the same player in 2019 after he suffered that injury in 2018.
No, he was absolutely not. He struggled, and I'm not convinced, frankly, that Devonta Freeman really offers you much in terms of what you're hoping for with impact plays. I'm concerned he's washed, Harrison.
Yeah, I mean, he looked slow. His knees, quite frankly, feel shot at this point after all the injuries that have stacked up. But Devonta Freeman's a player they could and probably at least should look at and work him out. Another player with injuries, Tom, Lamar Miller, as I just keep it rolling here, kind of in the same boat, right? When both these guys were healthy, top 10, top 15 type of running backs. That hasn't been the case for a couple of years with either of these two guys, so I'll be fascinated to see which direction the Giants decide to go into for at the running back position if they take a look at a free agent. Miller was, of course, with the Patriots in training camp, but he has not played since 2018.
Yeah, Miller, when he's been out there, has been at least a serviceable back. Has he been like a dynamic top 10 back in the NFL? Not really.
A couple of really solid years in Houston.
I mean, who would you rather have, healthy Lamar Miller or Wayne Gallman as your lead back?
Healthy Lamar Miller.
Yeah, exactly. So with these two veterans here, I want you guys to get your votes for me in the comments section. Who would you rather have? Type DF for Devonta Freeman or type in LM for Lamar Miller. I think I go Miller, Harrison, but I'm not sold either way.
If I know Freeman is somewhat healthy, I think he actually fits the Barkley type of back better. He can catch the football better than Lamar Miller. So if I know he can give me some of that, I would type DF, but he hadn't been signed yet. He wasn't even in a training camp. I have concerns there.
Speaking of someone with not a lot of discussion around them and also maybe not a great pass catcher, Isaiah Crowell, who does still hang around the NFL, I guess.
Yeah, he did a little bit of pass catching in the past, but mostly as a check down type of running back. It was, if you remember the fantasy flex days of 2017 or so, Bilal Powell and Isaiah Crowell, pick one and they're going to get you 10 points. he's done a little bit of everything in the NFL. He's definitely not a lead back. The torn Achilles from last year is obviously a red flag, but he is only 27 years old. He's the youngest of this bunch so far. He's been around for, it seems like, a while, but he's only 27. I haven't heard a lot of chat.
What is he, Benjamin Button?
I haven't heard a lot of chat. Maybe he didn't go to college. I haven't heard a lot of chat. He went to Alabama State. I haven't heard a lot of chatter around Crowell, Tom, but maybe he's worth a look.
I mean, I think you can at least work him out, you know? See what he can do.
The theme of this is that there's not a lot of top-tier options out there. We'll get to some options from within in just a moment. But who's going to win this division? The Cowboys, the Eagles, the Giants, and the Washington football team. And, Tom, the reason I asked this question
Washington still leads the NFC East, technically.
This is a bad division.
Yes, it is.
And that title is not a typo.
Because if the Cowboys hadn't magically come back against the Falcons, it would have been against a different NFC East team. They'd have no wins outside of the conference. So I'm going to type in my outside the division, excuse me. I'm going to type in my DAL. Where are you going, Harrison?
I still think it's Dallas, but I'm not confident in it. I think 8-8 might win this division this year. Who knows?
So the Giants have a chance with Jason Garrett, you're saying?
Yeah, they're back in the mix.
All right, folks. Some NFL face masks are still available. In fact, they are discounted 20% off on most of the multi-packs you'll see here. Get yours today at chatsports.com/stay safe. They got them for all your favorite NFL teams, from individual solo packs to the 4-packs you see right there for the Kansas City Chiefs. Even got some player-themed masks as well. So check the comments, check the description. That link is in there. It's chatsports.com/stay safe. We looked external. Now let's look at internal options here. In terms of the roster spot being filled, Harrison, Rod Smith makes so much sense.
Yeah, I think that the first thing you do is you probably activate him to the active roster.
For sure.
We'll see if that becomes official at some point, but Jason Garrett's got familiarity with him, and he actually played pretty well for a couple of games back in 2017 when Ezekiel Elliott was suspended. So familiarity there, a guy that's already in your system, a guy that knows what the offense is. Rod Smith probably makes sense in terms of an immediate option.
Let's look then in terms of who gets the carries and touches for Saquon Barkley. And there are internal options here led by Wayne Gallman, who, as you mentioned earlier, is kind of more of that typical quote-unquote lead back.
Yeah, I think kind of a 1-2 hybrid punch of Gallman and Dion Lewis is going to make sense here, where Gallman wasn't even active in week 2, but he'll be probably more of your ball carrier, and then Dion Lewis is going to play that third down role, a guy who is pretty effective as a pass catcher, 4 grabs for 36 yards in their loss against the Bears on Sunday, so he can still offer a little bit of that and give you some decently chunk plays in space. It's not super inspiring, but it's what you got right now. If they decide to promote from within, you're looking at a 3-headed monster, I will say, of Wayne Gallman, Dion Lewis, and Rod Smith. And,
monster as in it's gross, right?
Monster as in very, very sarcastic there, if you couldn't tell.
So did you guys draft Saquon in fantasy? We'll mention some potential fantasy replacements here in a second. Harrison, you did, right?
Yeah, I felt great when he slipped to me at the number 5 overall pick, and I think my buddies had a crystal ball, because this has not worked out in my favor. I'll say this. I'm not going to be the fantasy guy who is pissed when their player tears his knee. Come on, don't be that guy.
More important things. Okay.
But I got to replace him somehow. So let us know. Y for yes, N for no. I'm typing my Y for yes. I'm looking at some of these guys, Tom, for some potential replacements. Darrell Henderson played pretty well in week 2. All these guys, by the way, owned in most leagues. Less than 50% are owned. So these are guys that are available. I'm looking at Jerick McKinnon. You got Raheem Mostert's banged up. Tevin Coleman is hurt right now. McKinnon has looked pretty good for a guy who hasn't played in 2 years. I think he's a guy that makes sense. Sony Michel, he's owned in more than some of these other players.
He doesn't look great either. Damon Harris is going to come back.
I think Mike Davis is a sleeper guy, especially in PPR. In years past, he's been a decent PPR flex type of play where, with Seattle, I remember they would just dump it down to him and he'd have 5 catches a game. So there are some decent options. You're not replacing Barkley as a true RB1, but could you find a flex type of play? Maybe.
Sure. I think Lewis is a great PPR option. Yep. He's owned in 60%, by the way, folks. But if you can get James Robinson still, if you're playing in a competent league, he's not going to be there. But if you're playing in a not-so-competent league, go pick him up
He's
right now.
already gone in mine.
He should be gone in your league, but I checked today. He was at 60% owned.
Eight-man leagues, if you're in an 8-man, he might be
There you
available for you guys. So go check James Robinson out of Jacksonville out for you fantasy owners. Those are some names to keep in mind if you're trying to replace Saquon Barkley.